Hey, my name is Dan and welcome back. This channel is all about helping people reach higher in their relationship with Jesus. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and giving us a thumbs up. Let's get into the video. Today I want to talk to you about a personal story, a tragedy that recently happened in my family. In fact, I want to talk to you about how God can take a tragic moment in our lives and transform it into a triumphant victory. So let me tell you a story. Just recently, on July 7th, my wife and I rushed my son to the emergency room, not knowing what was happening with him. We obviously knew that he was sick. And it seemed like moments later, him and I were jumping on an airplane and flying to the Seattle Children's Hospital, to where a little later my wife would arrive with my family, and her and I and my son would be there an entire week. This was the hardest thing we've ever faced. It was indeed a tragedy. And you know what? Little did we know that this would lead us to the biggest shift in not only our family, but our life and our ministry. One verse that I really hung on to during this entire experience was found in 2 Corinthians 5:7. It reads, "We walk by faith and not by sight." And that verse there has been an anchor for me, because although we're still treating my son for this condition, my wife and I truly, wholeheartedly believe that God has healed our son, and we're walking by faith and not by sight. What I find interesting is that prior to us taking him to the emergency room, my wife and I were having a deep discussion earlier that day. We were talking about our life. We were talking about the direction we were going. And in particular, we were talking about our ministry and how and why we were ignoring the thing that we knew God was calling us to do. In fact, that day, her and I made a decision, and we surrendered to God's purposes for our life. We had no clue this was going to happen. We take it as an attack from the enemy against us, but we're standing on the promises of Jesus. You know, the reason we had not pursued our calling in the first place was just life, distractions, career, family, all of those things. In fact, I had been pursuing a career in financial services, so close to taking my life insurance and annuities test. And I find it interesting how God can take these tragic moments to really shift us and set us in the right direction. You know, that entire week I was there, not only in the ICU, but in the general care area there where my son was being taken care of. God really began to deal with my life, deeply began to deal with me in areas, man, that I don't even want to talk about. So much that I saw my calling in such clarity. I believe that what Satan meant for harm, God used in my personal life, in my wife's life, to really wake us up and help us to see. And I'm going to tell you why, because the biggest lesson that we learned during our experience there was this: my son's purpose, my son's calling, his purpose in life depends on whether my wife and I fulfill ours. You see, it's our job to fan the flame of God's purpose in his life. And if we're not pursuing our purpose, if we're not stepping into the things that God is calling us to do, then how? How can we lead and direct him in what he will one day become? I remember just being in that hospital room, hiding behind a curtain. There was a period of time where my son could not eat because he was not stable. And there I was weeping and begging God behind that curtain to remove what was happening to him and to place it on me. That's how much a parent loves their children. And that's the second thing that I learned in that tragic moment, was that I for once in my entire adult life of following Jesus, I experienced the fullness of God's love for me. Because that's exactly what Jesus did for us. He said, don't give it to my son Dan. Don't give it to the viewer. I'll take his shame. I'll take their sin. And I'll put it upon myself. And that's what Jesus did for us. And for that moment, I fully understood God's love. So much that I am forever changed. Now I can go about my day. I can go about my life with new purpose and meaning, a new perspective. And I just want to close this video by saying that God wants us to understand the fullness of his love. He loves you so much. Have you come to understand the fullness of his love for you? Sometimes it's those tragic moments that God uses to teach us, to show us, to draw us near, to redirect us to the place we need to be. So those are my words of encouragement for you today. I pray that you can take this and apply it to your life, and it encourages you in some way this week. Thank you so much for watching.